Good morning, students. Today's video is on peer review, and I wanted to make a quick video about peer review because I have found that a lot of my students actually dislike peer review. But for me, as a writer, peer review is one of the most important things that I can do, or rather that I can have someone else do to my writing to make my writing better. It's also something that when I do it for other people, it helps me become a stronger writer because it helps me identify weaknesses that I may have or that other people may say that I have in my writing that I don't really notice. So, peer review benefits you, the receiver of the peer review, because it should identify places that are weak or hard to understand in your own essay. Your readers aren't really looking for errors, although they might present the things that they find as errors, but they're looking for places where they're confused, where you could be clearer or easier to understand. Similarly, if you're a peer reviewer, you're not just looking for things that are wrong, you're looking for places where your classmate may need to meet the directions more clearly, may need to signal or signpost what's going on in a paragraph or an essay more clearly, or may just need to rephrase some things to make them easier to understand. Peer review is not about being wrong, it's about getting better as a writer. So, very quickly, I want to start with two important things that you should not do in peer review. The first thing that a lot of students do that can create problems is because they're often peer reviewing a friend, they might just say something like, "This is a great essay. I think everything here is wonderful." This isn't helpful. As I mentioned in my first video at the beginning of the semester, all of us have room to improve as writers. If you want to tell your friend that they have done something really great in their essay, pick a specific that they can be confident about. You might say, "You have a great topic sentence in this paragraph," or "Your citations look great," or even, "These are really exciting facts," or "really great quotations." Choose something specific to celebrate with your classmate rather than just praising them for doing something generically good. A second issue that students sometimes have is they look for something small and concrete that they can criticize. It's not wrong to criticize small things, but if your paragraph is missing topic sentences, or an essay doesn't really have a thesis statement, being told that there's a comma missing in the third paragraph is not going to fix the biggest issues of the essay. So instead of looking for something small to fix, a single citation, or a comma, or punctuation, or even some wording in a tricky phrase, I would encourage you to start with the biggest possible thing. If you find something in the directions that your classmate hasn't done, that's a great and concrete way to give your classmate substantial feedback that will help your classmate be stronger and better on his or her essay. So, now that we've covered some don'ts, let's go to the do's. These are the things that I would recommend starting with as you begin a peer review. In the first place, as already mentioned, be direct and concrete. Don't just say, "This is good," or "This is bad." Instead, try to use concrete language to tell your classmate exactly what you think could be improved. Your quotations could be longer. Your quotations could be shorter. Your topic sentence could be more specific. Giving concrete examples is going to help your classmate understand what needs to be fixed, and it will make your classmate more receptive to the criticism. I would also encourage you to do a peer review with my assignment directions at hand. Print them out if you only have one device, or pull them up on screen next to the paragraph or paragraphs that you're peer reviewing. Check off the paragraph and its contents against the things that I've asked your classmate to provide in the essay. Now, that doesn't mean that if you're reading a body paragraph that you should say, "There's no introduction here, you've only given me one paragraph." You know, because of the assignment, that your classmate is supposed to give you a body paragraph. It also doesn't mean that if I've asked for a specific number of sources, you should say, "Hey, you don't have enough sources here," because those other sources are probably in other paragraphs that you're not reading. If you're reading a whole essay, you can of course do these things because you'll be able to see the entire contents of the essay. But if you're only reading a paragraph, look at what the paragraph does and check it against the assignment directions. Does it meet the assignment directions? Does it look like it would work with the directions I've given? Identify areas where it could meet the assignment directions more clearly and highlight these in particular so that your classmate can make sure they've done each particular thing I've asked for. I would also encourage you to prioritize the essentials. I already suggested that you don't start with small things, but start with the biggest thing you see. What's the greatest weakness when you evaluate your classmate's paragraph against my directions? What structural issues make the paragraph more challenging to read or to understand? What huge thing do you think is missing? Start with the biggest issue you can possibly conceive of and work down to the smaller issues, giving feedback like grammar and style only if you can't find anything larger. At the same time, it's probably a good idea to keep the Southeastern grading rubric in mind. You all have access to that on Moodle, so if you can't find anything to criticize specifically in your classmate's paragraph looking at my directions, look at that rubric. What's one suggestion you could give your classmate to move your classmate from a C to a B or from a B to an A? Obviously, you won't be able to tell things like word count, but you can certainly tell many of the other elements. Look at that rubric and see if there are any areas that seem weak where your classmate could improve. In addition, I'd also encourage you, as you make these critiques, to think about ways in which those critiques might apply to your own paper. If your classmate's topic sentence is hard to understand, go back and look at your own topic sentences. Would they be difficult for someone to understand as well? If so, think about how you could revise your topic sentences to make them clearer, just as your classmate will be revising his topic sentences to make them clearer. You might also not be sure whether your classmate has adequately mastered a particular element of the directions or of the Southeastern rubric. It's okay on a peer review as a student to acknowledge that you're not sure. So you can say, I'm not sure whether your topic sentences match the assignment directions. I'm not sure whether your citations are always accurate. I'm not sure about some of your commas, such as, and then give an example, of course. If you're not sure of something and you tell your classmate that gives your classmate the space and the time to ask an instructor about those elements before the paper is due. If you don't flag them for your classmate, he or she may never know that that's something you thought needed to be fixed. And if your classmate loses points on the eventual essay because they were incorrect and you didn't have the confidence to say so, then that's something that could have easily been avoided if you had spoken up. So, if you're not sure, feel free to say, I'm not sure, but I think this might have an issue. And then you and your classmate should probably both speak to your instructor to see whether that's the case. You'll want to make sure that you know for your own paper, and your classmate will want to make sure that he or she has done that element of the directions correctly. Finally, my last piece of feedback, coming at the end of a kind of long video, is don't give too much feedback. It can be overwhelming for a student to receive 15 or 20 things to change. Pick no more than 4 things, probably 2 or 3 things, that if changed or addressed or improved, would most substantially improve your classmate's essay. You might not get to commas. You should focus on the things that will make your classmate's essay the strongest, the most immediately. When your classmate has fixed those, your classmate can come back and ask you for another round of feedback, if he or she wishes, or can take the essay to a writing center or a tutor. You've probably noticed that I generally give you 2 or 3 things to work on when I provide feedback on your essays, and this is again because I'm trying to prioritize the elements that will make the biggest difference in your next essays. Sometimes you have grammar errors and I don't make it to grammar because I've already told you to change 3 or 4 other things. But another thing about grammar errors is that if you're being asked to change a huge number of elements in your essay, you might not have the same grammar errors by the time you've fixed the bigger structural issues. So it's useful to start with the things where words and phrases and even whole sentences could get changed and work down to the smaller details as the paper becomes more polished. Don't overwhelm your classmate. To recap, be as specific as possible. Link your feedback directly to the assignment directions and to the rubric you've been given. Prioritize the things that are the most important. Don't give too much feedback, and constantly approach this as a learning exercise, both for you and for the classmate you are critiquing.